Can you say something more about the difference of guilt and remorse?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people will mix the two.
The main thing we see is when it comes up again and the one who had the affair says, well, you know, I said sorry for it already. You know I said sorry. You know I meant it. And actually that's not the point. The point is the person who's lost her trust, say, wants to hear it again. That the person feels how deeply this affected her.
That there's a fine line also, because if a person who has, the guilty person who committed the adultery, stays in the guilt, it is very often in a place of a regress part. I am trying to be less than I am. I'm trying to fit back into a box for you to love me again. So sometimes it becomes like trying to please the father, trying to please the mother, trying to not be abandoned. I will become who you want me to be to love me. But we know that from that place, the real healing can't happen, because underneath it, they will just have to push in the background again the reason why they actually committed the adultery in the first place. Whereas the remorse is a level of a much more adult place of saying, I really do regret the hurt I have done to us and to you specifically.
Yeah.
Yet, I also want us to learn something from this.
Yeah.
And we have experienced where the healing can happen to the extent that the betrayed person eventually is able to turn to the person who committed the affair and with genuine gratitude say, in hindsight, I thank you for having actually risked our relationship to do this.
Yeah, because now I had to wake up.
I had to wake up to something.
This can happen.
Yeah. And that's when the real healing starts, when they begin to realize that very rarely is it just one partner that causes the affair. It's something that happens in the relationship. And one or the other goes out and pulls the third being in.
So it can be very creative. It can be very creative. It can be the person says, thank you for bringing that woman to our life. Now I had finally stopped being a doormat. But it certainly means that both partners have to really be caring about the relationship as much as they care about themselves.
Willing to explore what was going on before.
That's the key. It's the key.
And not just either getting out of trouble or getting revenge. That's the most common way it goes, unless they're inspired or properly guided.
Because if you take the thing about what is it that inevitably a person who comes in with a partner who has betrayed him or her, they want to make sure this is never going to happen again. I want you to make sure it's never going to happen again. Who can promise that? The person can say, yes, I promise you will never happen again. Is that going to satisfy me? No. Because I'm going to already think, yeah, you say so, but the time when I asked you, you were having the affair and you were still saying you didn't. Yeah? I'm not going to trust it just because the person say, yes, I will never do it again.
The only way it's going to work is to say, if I'm that partner, I say, I'm investing in this relationship because that's, for me, is a good investment. And I'm not going to sabotage that again. I did it once.
And the reason I did it is because I didn't know how to say this. I didn't know how to do this. I was afraid that you would think so. I was afraid of this. I now understand that we need to talk more about the things that led to this thing. Yeah? And if we deal with these things, then it will not happen again. Because I will not feel like I did in the way that I felt when I didn't know what else to do, but to have these needs taken care of by trying to do it in this way. I can see it was the wrong way, but I didn't know how else to deal with these issues. Now when I feel we're talking about it, I don't feel so rejected, alone, abandoned, lost.
There's a lot of couples who experience this and they don't go and ask for help.
No.
They try and deal with it as best as they can, but they don't ask the questions why, or they don't understand why.
Yeah.
You know, how can they try and get some healing out of this?
It's really difficult because when they go to friends and get support, generally the friends will support them to withdraw or to vilify one of the other partners.
And the fear will also be very often when you have a couple that turn up to therapy. Before they come, the fear is that the person who is the guilty party, they are convinced that the therapist are going to tell them off and tell them naughty little boys or naughty little girls, or that they shouldn't be doing it, can't they see what mess they have created, and stop it at that. So they don't want to come and just be told off. They already feel, yeah, I know this was bad, but actually there's no space for the part who did it, who also suffered, even if they did an act that ultimately hurt, even sometimes harmed. But it is the person who does it also needs support to understand, why did you go to that level? Yeah.
So you're saying that if you are the one who have been unfaithful, if they come into the therapy room, they will not be condemned. Because you see it as a system and something going on between them.
Well, yes, but it's not going to be ignored.
No.
I mean, I might say, are you crazy? You're trying to run a relationship with two women? What are you, Superman? I couldn't do it. One is enough for me. Even half is enough for me. You think you could manage two? You out of your mind?
Yeah. But then again, isn't that being curious more than condemning?
Yeah.
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 Is trying to understand the reasons why, rather than just see it as face value. Now that's not to say that there might not be unconscious reasons why, that goes back into childhood or back into unconscious stuff, where there might be a woman or a man who part of them want to hurt the person from hurts that has happened in a different atmosphere, a different context that they may not be aware of. There can be a level of revenge going on, and it's important to start looking at that. But the moment you start uncovering those things, you will find that behind it there is still a person who was struggling with a situation that they didn't know how to bring into the relationship in any way, but to act it out, to get some attention to that there is a problem. One of the important things about how a couple manage affairs is also about how did the affair become known to the person who was betrayed. Did the person tell themselves? Did they find out by friends? Did the person that had the affair come and tell them?
Well, these days, email and mobile phones is becoming a real telltale third.
Yeah.
But do you see a difference in the healing process to couples in relation to how they found it out?
Well, one of the things...
Is it more difficult to heal?
No, one of the things we see is an awful lot of time it looks like the person wanted to get found out.
If you want to have an affair and you don't want it to be found out, you'll find ways of not being found out.
So there is a part that wants to be found out?
Yeah.
Very often, it looks
very
like.
Often, very often. And the very fact that if you do manage to turn up and bring the third being in the form of a therapist, or some support from professional people, the willingness to do that is always a big step into the healing. Yeah. Because if not, the worst part is that they have the affair and neither party want to come and look at it. And you sometimes find that it's the person who feels betrayed by it who will say to the partner who committed the adultery, you go and sort this out because it's your problem. Yeah? And that is actually the least possible healing to happen. This problem of affairs is not an individual problem. It belongs in the couple. At least until you find out what are the circumstances leading up to it, the underlying reasons for it. Then there may be something going on individually. But that could be just as easily for the person who feels betrayed as for the one who did the betrayal. Yeah, that would need to look at some stuff. Welcome.